Good morning. This webinar offers closed captioning. To enable closed captioning, click on the live transcript button on the bottom of your screen and choose your preferred method. Welcome to the Chicago Department of Business Affairs and Consumer Protection webinar. Please note any website or email that I mention will be posted in the chat box. For those seeking business licensing assistance, you can visit the Small Business Center at City Hall or call 312-74-GO-BIZ. Also, business licenses can be applied for or renewed online at chicagobusinessdirect.org. If you are part of the BACP Entrepreneur Certificate Program, you could get credit for joining this webinar by sending an email to bacpoutreach@cityofchicago.org. If you want to learn about the program, please visit chicago.gov/businesseducation. Also, this webinar is being recorded and will be available at youtube.com/ChicagoBACP. I will post the mentioned information in the chat box. We encourage attendees to ask questions. Please use the chat box to send your questions. There will be a Q&A session at the end of the presentation. Please note that the views, information, and opinions expressed during this webinar are solely those of the presenter and do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of the Department of Business Affairs and Consumer Protection or the City of Chicago. Today's webinar will be Access Capital to Purchase or Make Permanent Improvements to Your Small Business, presented by Kimberly Brisky, Managing Director of Communications and Engagement at SomerCor. Kimberly, thank you as always for presenting.
Absolutely. Good morning, everybody. I'm glad to see you all and on this kind of dreary Friday right before the holidays. So thanks so much for taking the time. I did just want to kind of preface before we start, there's going to be a lot of information that I'm going to be sharing today. So I really do encourage you, if you have questions, to put them in the chat box, but also to know that it's actually a good thing. There are a lot of really great options for small businesses or interested entrepreneurs in the city of Chicago to get capital for their business. So if it's not something that we talk about today, we're part of a really big ecosystem that we could try to connect you with somebody else who might be able to help. So I just wanted to kind of put that out there as we get started here. Again, this is me. I'm going to have my face go away in just a moment and I'll come back for the Q&A. I just want to be able to share our website, which is really the great place to start for all of this information, as well as my contact info here. So SomerCor, that's where I work. We are a nonprofit lender. We're certified by the SBA, and our primary business is the administration and servicing of SBA 504 loans, which we'll be covering later today. We also, on behalf of the City of Chicago, administer the Spiff fund and the NOF fund. We've actually been doing Spiff since its infancy, which was over 20 years ago. And for us, our mission is really growing businesses, creating jobs, and impactful investment in every community through access to capital. So I'm going to stop my video and we're going to get started. So here's just a quick set of guideposts that we're going to be talking about today. First, we're going to cover Spiff from the program mission all the way through how you are actually able to apply. Then we'll talk about the Neighborhood Opportunity Fund, similar format, and as well as the SBA 504 program. And just as clarification right up front, Spiff and NOF, these are grants. They are only applicable for the City of Chicago. The SBA 504 program is a loan, and that is applicable for the entire state of Illinois. All right. In terms of Spiff, this has been launched in 1999, and this is all about reimbursable grants for permanent building improvements. Residential projects are not eligible. And we use TIF financing or tax increment financing to reimburse grantees for their repair or rehab of their facilities. So this program, again, has been around since 1999, and it's easily one of the most successful and longest lasting economic development programs. And SomerCor administers this on behalf of the Department of Planning and Development. This is always the most important slide. Everybody wants to know, all right, how much in terms of grants can I actually receive? Here are the big highlights. In terms of an industrial property, the highest grant amount you can receive is $250,000. For a commercial property, whether or not you're a tenant or a landlord, is $150,000. You heard that right. That means you as a tenant can actually apply for SBIF grant funding to improve your space. You just will need the approval of your landlord, as well as a lease over 3 years to show that you will be staying in that location. You also, for a multi-tenant property, and the maximum is $250,000 for that entire property and $75,000 for each actual individual tenant there. You can receive more grants up to their, so let's say you have a first project that's only $20,000. The next project, maybe in the next time the SBIF opens, is $30,000. You can do more than one project as long as you are staying under that maximum grant. Once you reach that maximum grant amount, you'll have to wait 3 years to apply. Again, the cool thing about the SBIF program, it is reimbursable, meaning that you will have to put the money in upfront to complete the project, but then you'll be receiving it on the back end. But you will be able to receive up to 90% of the project costs back to you. So if your business has 0 to 3 million net worth for a commercial business, which is the majority of our applicants, you'll be able to get 90% of your eligible costs reimbursed, and down the line there 60 and 30. For industrial projects, regardless of your net worth, it's always going to be 50% of your eligible costs can be reimbursed. So now you know how much money you could potentially receive. Let's talk about who would be eligible to participate. And this is really important right here off the bat. For anybody who is applying, the property must be in a TIF district where the SBIF funds are currently available and accepting applications. We'll go over that in a few slides, but that's really important. As I mentioned before, it can be landlords, the actual business owners who actually own the facility, or tenants. This also is eligible for startups. So as long as you have a business plan and a current City of Chicago business license, you can apply. We also just want to make sure that anybody who is applying fits under these eligibility limits, which is 9 million or less in gross sales. Or if you're also the landlord, you also have 9 million or less in cumulative net worth and 500K assets maximum per individual. The key here is we don't want to have any type of flipping going on. We want to make sure this money is going to folks who are invested in staying in that community and are going to be able to build their business there. If you are an industrial tenant or owner occupied, either way, 200 or fewer full-time employees is the eligibility limit. Just in the case that you are both running the business and own the property, you're subject to both the tenant and landlord requirements. So let's get started, because the first thing I mentioned is you need to find out if your property is in a SBIF district to make sure that you can apply. And the SomerCor website is able to do that for you. If you go to SomerCor.com/SBIF, click on first, confirm your business is in a SBIF district, and you'll be able to enter your address here into the page shown on the screen. Once you do that, you'll be able to have another screen pop up, and what it'll tell you is if the property is located in a TIF, when, and also who can assist you with the program. This is going to be Greater Auburn Gresham Development Corporation, for example, is a delegate agency that can assist you. And it'll tell you when the SBIF district is opening. Pardon me, I have a cold. So now you know that you're in a SBIF district. The next question is going to be, when is your actual district on deck or open for applications? As I mentioned earlier, only when your SBIF district is accepting applications can you apply. Once again, go to SomerCor.com/SBIF, check on which SBIF districts are open, and a list will pop up. So now we know how to find out if you're in a SBIF district, how to find out if your SBIF district is open for applications. The next question is my business eligible to apply? So this list here is not comprehensive, but it gives you a pretty good idea of businesses that are allowed and not. So things like franchises or pawn shops, liquor stores, nightclubs, any non-for-profit that are national organizations. Those are the kind of things, places of worships as well. These are not allowed. If you're not sure, send us an email and we can look into it for you and find out and give you an answer so you know before you apply. So if you determine that your property is located in a SBIF district, you know it's going to be opening, you know your business is eligible, let's talk about what improvement costs you can actually use SBIF funding for. We're talking about these permanent building improvements, things that you can't take away on a rolling cart. And I have Brewer Coffee and Custard there at 79th Street corridor. As an example, you see that it was like a complete facade redo, windows, doors. You can't tell from here, but it was an entire interior build out here from systems, HVAC, things like that. So we've got roofing, facades, anything that you need for ADA compliance. If you need architectural and construction fees, those also can potentially be reimbursed. If you're actually doing the interior build out itself from drywall and all those kinds of things, those can all be included. Excuse me. Again, I say the focus is it's a permanent building improvement. This list is not comprehensive, so if you have questions, feel free to give us a buzz. This is a key thing to know off the bat, though. What are ineligible for SBIF? New construction. So if you're doing ground up, standalone, minor repairs, cosmetic things. Equipment related expenses were things that you could just roll out on a dolly. Another really big one to note, outdoor dining, drinking areas, roof decks, those are all not included in SBIF. Fencing, parking lot construction or repair, landscaping, and very importantly, work on interior of residential units. Let's say you're in a mixed use location, you cannot use SBIF funds for the interior of a residential unit. Again, this list is not comprehensive, so you're welcome to send us a note. Including all of these other requirements about the type of work that you can do, it's important to know that design is critically important to your SBIF project. And we really encourage you to consult with SomerCor as well as design professionals on design requirements and guidelines before you actually draw up your plans for work. DPD actually has a design guideline form that's on our website. We really encourage you to refer to it. And it's all about making sure you're staying within the neighborhood design, that you're doing things that not only improve your business, but also the entire corridor. We do require for any commercial properties approved for a grant of $25,000 or greater, you must make at least one exterior improvement using at least 10% of the maximum grant. You can be waived if, let's say, you've recently had exterior work done, but that's at DPD's discretion. At this point, I just want to take a pause to show you some really cool projects that have used SBIF for a great transformation. In Bronzeville, this is a Miche's Cafe, Cakery and Cafe. You can see here externally, we have sort of the old awning, we have the chain fence, we sort of have, kind of the windows and doors that are old. Internally, it's completely blank. There's nothing there. And now the transformation is, this is what we see. The bright colors, the new windows, complete build out interior. This was done with a SBIF grant. Another great example, a delicious example as well, is Wiley's Chicken and Ribs there on the west side, Madison, Austin corridor. As you can see, again, interior and exterior, it was pretty abandoned and in rough shape. And this is what it turned into. The new exterior windows and doors, facade, and a build out interior of a kitchen, as well as the check-in counter. If this got you excited to apply for SBIF, I really encourage you again to head first to the SomerCor.com SBIF webpage. This is where you can learn about, again, confirming your business is in a SBIF district, checking to see when it's open, making sure you're reading the rules, and then you just click on the click here to apply button to actually access the application. And from there, you email it to us during your open period. The interesting thing about SBIF is that we really try to make the application process easy. It's only 3 pages. But we encourage you, though, to start collecting these other documents that you will eventually need. I generally say that the faster a project gets done is really dictated by how prepared our applicant is. So you should start collecting things like your business tax returns, your proof of property ownership or your lease, affidavit for child support form, which we'll be sending to you, other things like that, so that we can get started quickly and move you through these phases. So let's kind of dig in just a little bit further as to what to expect as a SBIF applicant. So the first stage, that's when we're going to be collecting those documents I just showed on the previous screen. Next is 120 days to really dig into your planning, your bids and specs, as well as a very key item, which is dealing with any debts to the city. If you have debts to the city, scofflaw, this could include water bills, utility bills, tickets or fines for other things for your business. Those must be taken care of or put on a payment plan prior to actually being able to start the project. Once you actually have gone through stages 1 and 2, you will receive a conditional commitment letter. This is the green light to begin construction. I cannot say this with more emphasis. Do not start construction until you get this conditional commitment letter. If you do, any construction done prior to the letter will not be reimbursed. After that, you will have 10 months to complete your actual construction period. We really encourage you to make sure that you're in constant contact with the SBIF team, because we know that construction can kind of be a lot of pauses and starts. And so if you're having issues, make sure we're in the loop. Additionally, permitting process can take a while. So as soon as you're ready to apply for permits, make sure you're doing that. And you need to be able to show that you've done that within 120 days of receiving the commitment letter, at least showing that you've applied for the permits. The last thing we want is for you to be approved and then not take action on the project, because what you'll be doing at that point is holding money away from somebody else who potentially could use it. Once you're actually in the thick of the actual construction, you also simultaneously are showing us proof of sufficient funds to complete the project. You have 120 days following that letter to show us, hey, I have sufficient equity or financing to complete the project, at least 50% of the project. Let's say you don't have all of it up front. That's fine. We can do it in phases, and then we'll pay you out, and then you'll be able to use that money to pay for the next phase. These are all things that you can work specifically with your project manager on. Once you actually have completed construction and fill out all of the required paperwork, you'll be reimbursed within 4 to 6 weeks. So right here is sort of a key website, again, back on SomerCor.com/SBIF. That can help you understand your SBIF project and help you get to where you need to be. I talked a little bit about the design guidelines. We've talked also about needing financing. If this is something that you don't have up front and are looking for banking partners or nonprofits to assist you, check out the SBIF lenders page there. These are folks that have previously worked with our clients to help get that interim financing. Let's say you're looking for contractors that can help you with the work. We have access to City of Chicago contractors that you can interview for your work. Also, technical assistance providers if you're interested in help for your actual design or construction management. The other page I list on here that I'm not going to go too deep in today is the SBIF lottery results. The interesting thing about SBIF is it is not a competitive grant, meaning that if you fulfill the criteria on the application, which is that you are a commercial or industrial business that fit those eligibility requirements we talked about in the beginning, and you are located in an open SBIF district, that's all you need to be eligible. The next question is going to be, how much money is available in that TIF district. And that's where the lottery comes in. If we get more requests than money that's available, we'll actually hold a randomized lottery to see the order in which projects are worked on. This is different than the NOF that we'll get in just a moment. That is a competitive grant that looks at other factors to select which projects move forward. So I'm going to take a pause here just to grab a drink of water. And if you have Spiff specific questions, now's a good time to put them in the chat box, and then we will move on to the next section on NOF in just a moment. All right, digging into the Neighborhood Opportunity Fund. I want to stay up front, and I'll say it again at the end. Right now, the NOF does not have an open application period, so I'm not going to dig too much into how to apply. This will go a little bit faster than Spiff, but I wanted to let you know that it's out there because we do expect it will open again in the future. Also, I encourage you to speak with the BACP team and others with the City of Chicago about the community reinvestment plan, because they actually have a grant program that's very similar in setup to NOF that is still taking applications. So I would make sure you connect with the city on that, and maybe we can put that in the chat box or the Q&A box so that those can be, that link can be accessed for everybody. So, but shifting back to the Neighborhood Opportunity Fund, this was launched in 2016, so much relatively newer. And the difference between this and Spiff is that rather than going based on TIF districts, this is really focused on very specific commercial corridors on the south, southwest, and west sides. Similar to Spiff, though, residential projects are not eligible. The way that this is funded is actually through an actual tax that's put on any developments that are happening near the downtown area, and a chunk of those funds are then put into a fund that is used for NOF. Right now, we're going to just focus on the small grants track. Again, the first question everybody asks, how much money can you access through this grant? For NOF, it's $250,000. That's what we're talking about today. As I mentioned, there's a competitive selection process based on the actual application itself. And also the grantees are expected to finish their projects within 2 years. You can use these funds for expansion or renovation of existing businesses, new locations for startup businesses or existing businesses. And something different than Spiff is you can actually do new construction at vacant properties. So talking about how you actually are awarded your grant, it's a little bit different than Spiff. If we're taking the total eligible project cost, every person who is an NOF grant recipient will get a baseline of 50% of their grant reimbursed. However, let's say that you also are a local resident, and I'll show the map on the next page of whether or not you are an actual local resident. And if you yourself are living in that area in the applicable area, then you can also get an additional 25% added on to your grant. Now, let's say also, not only are you a local resident, but you decide you're going to hire local residents for your business. You can eventually get 100% of your eligible grant costs reimbursed to you. However, it's important to note that the hiring costs, the hiring bonus cannot be applied until after the project is complete and you have workers in there, which makes sense. That means that no matter what, you have to, all grantees will have to contribute a minimum of 25% of the project costs while completing the project. And if after the project is complete and everybody's hired and you have those employee paperwork and pay stubs and you can prove the local hiring bonus, that's when you'll get the final 25%. Regardless of the total cost of your actual project, the maximum award for your grant is $250,000. So this is what I was talking about for those qualified investment areas for whether or not you're eligible for those additional bonuses for your grant. On the right it's a little hard to tell, but if you are living in one of those yellow areas, you can get that additional grant percentage reimbursed. On the left is the map that shows the eligible areas where you can have your project to be eligible for an NOF grant. As you can see, it's very targeted corridors. Now, there are a couple of differences between SBIF and NOF in terms of who's eligible. Commercial property owners, we know that's similar. Tenants with landlord approval, that's also similar, as well as nonprofits, which is also the same as SBIF. However, manufacturing and industrial businesses are not allowed, as well as social services and organizations, including workforce development, schools, and daycare centers. Similarly, churches and places of worship are not eligible. Eligible and not eligible expenses are very similar as well. We're really talking about the major exterior and interior renovations to an existing business, things that you cannot take out of the business. We're talking about the build out, the systems, the architectural and engineering fees, things like that. The difference here is that on NOF, you can use it for building acquisition, so long as it is actually part of the larger project. Similarly, things that are not eligible are building operating expenses like working capital, repairs to address building code violations, work on residential units, or any cosmetic repairs. Here's a great opportunity to look at some example projects. This is AGB Investigative Services on Chicago Lawn. As you can see in the beginning, it had really old brick, that awning, and those windowed, those cubed windows that are all a little bit out of date. And what they were able to do was completely transform the exterior and build out the interior for their business. Another example is Ozito's Tap in Little Village. And if you could see here, this was a totally empty space, and they turned it into something really high class, high end in Little Village. It's actually more of a speakeasy. It's a really cool spot. So in terms of your project timeline, you are really focused on getting from finalists to alumni and that process, and just remembering that you need to complete your project within 2 years, or else you may lose your award. Obviously, things happen like COVID, like construction delays, like increased costs. Just always keep in touch with us and we'll be able to help you work through that process. The key difference, once again, between SBIF and NOF is a competitive grant. This means that applications are reviewed and prioritized based on certain factors rather than SBIF, where it's just if the money is available. With NOF, we typically get hundreds of applications, and in the end, we choose usually between 20 and 30. And it's prioritized based on, are you ready for your project to start? Shovel ready, as they like to say. Have you talked to the community and make sure the project fits in with community needs and have, their buy-in? And then as well, does it fit design-wise within the rest of the community? So these are important things to think about if you're deciding you want to apply for NOF. And I encourage you, even though there is not an open NOF application at this time, to visit chicago.gov/NOF to learn more about the program and to stay tuned to that website for when there is another rollout period. That's where it will be. I'm going to pause here if you want to put any NOF questions in the chat.
We do have a few questions. If you have space that walls need to be insulated and drywall, can the funds be used for this?
If it's part of a larger project, drywall and insulation are certainly part of it. If that's the only thing, no, that will be considered a small cosmetic change.
Great. Are we able to apply for SBIF and NOF for the same project?
Great question. The answer is a sort of yes. And I say it in this way. You won't be able to use both SBIF and NOF funds for the same project at the same time. However, let's say you apply for SBIF, you apply for NOF, and you get into both. You can pick which one works best for you. Or let's say you apply for both and you don't get NOF, but you do get SBIF, then you can keep moving on with SBIF. If you do decide to, let's say you actually completed an NOF project a while ago and now are trying to apply for SBIF, that's fine. If it's within 3 years, what will happen is that any amount of money that you receive from NOF will be deducted from the full money available for you for SBIF. So let's say you got $50,000 from NOF. That means that $50,000 will be taken away from the maximum grant amount you can receive for SBIF.
Okay. What programs are startups eligible for?
Both SBIF and NOF you are eligible for, but you're going to need to make sure you have a business license. You're going to make sure you need to have a business plan. These are really critical elements to be able to show how you actually are planning to be able to make money and make an impact in that community.
If your space in a building is a part of a larger construction project, can you still get a SBIF or a NOF?
So if you are part of a multi-tenant building, you can apply for SBIF and NOF. I think we talked about that earlier, that there will actually be a limit for the full multi-tenant building of 250, and each individual tenant can apply for 75,000 for a commercial space. So yes, but you will need to get your landlord approval. If you have specific questions, you're always welcome to send us a note.
Are we able to upgrade a central air system?
Yes, system upgrades are definitely eligible. That's going to be your HVAC. Absolutely, that's eligible.
Can one organization receive funds as a landlord for the acquisition and a different business as a tenant receive funds for the tenant improvement?
No, so if that would have to be, first of all, that'd have to be NOF, because SBIF cannot be used for land acquisition. And you can't have two separate applicants working together on the same property. So it'd have to be just one or the other doing that. And that's the same for SBIF. Even if you have a landlord and a tenant and they both want to apply, you have to pick one. You can't both try to get bites at the apple.
Are you able to use NOF for mixed use building?
Yes, but it similarly is about you can't use any of the NOF funds for any residential area.
I want to start a summer camp program. Does this type of business apply?
I'm not so sure about that one, because I guess we do daycares, and so that probably would be okay for SBIF. I don't think it would be eligible for NOF, but I would have to double check on that.
When will SBIF reopen for my district if the rollout already ended?
So that's a great question. The way that SBIF rollouts are scheduled is based on when there is funding available. And we have everything that's scheduled to be open through the end of 2022 is posted on our website. The next time that your district will be open depends on when more funding is available. And you're always welcome to send us a note to see if that's coming in 2023. But at this point, if it's not listed on the website, it hasn't been planned yet, and we don't know if there's funds ready.
Funding for NOF and SBIF are separate, aren't they? So is any grant received by the city decreased, offset by any other grant received for the same project in the same period? And I can repeat that. Yes,
SBIF and NOF are different buckets of money. However, there still is, if within that 3-year period that we talked about, that they do offset each other. So if you do receive, the $50K for an NOF project within a 3-year period, your Spiff grant will be decreased by, your maximum will be decreased by $50,000.
That is all the questions right now. I think you could move on.
Awesome. That was actually a smart way to do it, because we just spend a whole bunch of time talking about City of Chicago specific grants. But perhaps either one, your business isn't located in the City of Chicago, or two, you're ready to actually buy your own commercial space. And so then we're going to focus now, moving on to the last product that SomerCor offers, which is the SBA 504 loan. This is actually what we at SomerCor do specialize in, other than grant administration. So, unfortunately, when it comes to federal programs, they're not as fun in naming them as they are with city programs. 504 refers to a section of legislation, actually. The program's been in place in its current form since 1986. And the reason why they created the 504 program was they were concerned that particular entrepreneurs were not being able to access capital. And so we wanted to make a program that made that easier, especially for minority, women, veteran-owned businesses. And the cool thing about the 504 program is it has these public policy requirements that require you to focus on job creation, community development, and serving these traditionally under-resourced communities. So when we're talking about the SBA 504 program, what is it? It's a lending and financing solution for a small business owner to buy, expand, or refinance a major fixed asset. So what's a fixed asset? When we're talking about here is your commercial real estate or your equipment and heavy machinery. And when you're talking about a 504 loan, you actually have 3 different players. You have a small business borrower like you, a certified development company like SomerCor, and a third-party lender. And this could be your credit union, your bank, or even a nonprofit if they're going to lend you the money for your portion of the loan. Next question is, who can actually use the 504 program? Anybody who is a for-profit business. So any nonprofits, you are no longer eligible for this. You have to have under 15 million in tangible net worth, prior 2 years average tax net income under 5 million. And if you are purchasing commercial real estate, you actually have to be occupying at least 51% of the space, or if it's a new business, or excuse me, new construction, 60% of the space. What I mean by this, and this is actually really relevant for the City of Chicago, for example, is we have a lot of mixed use properties. And so if you want to buy a property with the 504, you need to make sure that you are operating, if you're an existing business and an existing property, your business is actually functioning in over 51% of the actual space. So that's an important thing to keep in mind. The question about who can use the 504 in terms of what types of businesses, I've seen everything from an accounting firm to a McDonald's franchise to, not McDonald's, a Culver's franchise, to education and childcare facilities, manufacturing, hospitality, retail, all these things and more. Lots of breweries as well. So we have lots of cool opportunities for the 504. And if you're not sure if your business fits, feel free to give us a call. So a lot of people will wonder, well, why would you use an SBA 504 loan versus other projects? First is below market interest rates. I think a lot of folks can see right now that we see sort of this double track of inflation as well as increasing interest rates to access capital. So the 504 rate will be below market. Another reason why is because you sometimes, if you are an existing business, you will only have to likely put down 10% financing. This is as opposed to typical conventional loans where you have to put down more. And if you have more money that you keep in your pocket, this means you can actually use that for other working capital expenses in your business. Not only is your interest rate going to be below market, it's going to be fixed for up to 25 years. So when you know that your interest rate is going to be fixed below market for 25 years, that really helps you with your business planning, and you're not worried about surprise balloon payments, and overall makes it a more affordable project. So let's talk a little bit about sort of the setup of the actual loan and what you can use those dollars for. It's kind of similar in nature to the projects that the grant programs we talked about today, and that we're focusing on these permanent improvements. And we're going to be talking about land and building acquisition, construction, remodeling, equipment, and some certain fees. This isn't about the working capital or inventory. That's a different type of loan. So if you feel like you have a project where you're looking to build and possibly renovate commercial real estate, you think the 504 is a good fit. This is the really cool thing about the 504, as I mentioned before, is that you as a borrower typically will only put in 10%. Your banker will be able to put in 50%, and the SBA portion of the loan, which is fixed below market, will be 40%. The only reason why you would put more than 10% down is, let's say that you are a startup, or you're in a building that can only be used for one type of business. That might be like a gas station, for instance. You know, that's something that you can only really use it as a gas station. So that would be something you'd have to put a little bit more equity in. But either way, you really be putting much less money down to be able to access this funds. So let's talk about a cool example 504 program. This is in, I think this is in the Avondale, Avondale neighborhood. So Ink Factory is a visual note-taking business. This actually really blew up due to COVID. A lot of people were doing Zooms and virtual meetings, and they were able to actually buy this new location, and it is actually 2.5 times larger than their previous space. And we helped work with them through the entire process to be able to access this financing for their growing business. It's a pretty cool story. But the other thing about the 504, excuse me, is that not only can it be a loan to be able to purchase new commercial real estate and equipment, it also can be for refinance, strategic debt restructuring solutions. And I think this is important, especially as we deal with uncertain economic times. And this is sort of the only time that you can use the 504 to access cash for eligible working expenses. You can actually, when you're doing a refi, get a cash out piece of up to 20% of the appraised value for eligible operating expenses, which you'll see here are like things like salary, rent, utilities, and inventory. Here's another cool Chicago example. This is actually a dual example. This is La Peña Restaurante in Portage Park. He did the Spiff program and did building improvements and got that grant, but also he utilized the 504 refi to refinance his previous conventional loan, and his monthly mortgage payments were cut nearly in half. Obviously, especially during COVID, especially for a restaurant, this made a huge difference. So, you know, this is a really cool thing. We were able to help Jaime out with his business. And now not only did they do the building improvements, he's able to save on his mortgage. So if you think that you are actually eligible and ready to, instead of really focusing on the smaller improvements, but really actually buy your own space, here's kind of things that I would start pulling together. Similarly to SBIF and NOF, you want to make sure you have your tax returns, your account receivables, income expenses, excuse me, as well as starting to get some of your personal financials together. Because when you start talking to either your banker or to us, this is the key thing, again, I would say about the 504 is that it's not just working with us, it's working with some type of other lender or a third-party lender, as we call them. You can either go to your credit union or your banker and ask them directly, hey, I'd like to do the 504 and I'd like to work with SomerCor. Or you can contact us and say, hey, I don't have a traditional banking relationship. Can you help me find one to help do this? Either way, it'll be, the three of us will work together on the financing. We have here sort of our full team at SomerCor, including our 504 folks, as well as our Spiff grant program director, as well as our NOF program director here that can kind of dig more into the details on these programs. But I'm going to take a pause here for folks to put any questions on any of the 3 programs that I discussed today. And then I'll hold off for questions for just a moment. And again, I apologize for the coughing today.
It's totally fine.
Brutal. I'm so sorry.
Let's see. So for SBA 504, if you haven't opened your business but plan to purchase a mixed use to house your business thereafter you acquire it, planning to open a consulting which has a real estate office center for community for translations and business center for community. Will this fall in the SBA 504 guidelines?
Well, I would say this. Here are the few caveats. Startups, yes, they can be eligible. Just know that you will have to put in additional equity as opposed to just 10% down. You probably will have to put 15. The other key caveat is that if you are buying a mixed use facility, that your business has to be operating out of at least 51% of it. So if it, if you have like apartments or whatever else on top, you have to make sure that your actual business side is actually going to be functioning in at least 51%. And it sounded a little make sure it's for profit and not nonprofit. I wasn't totally sure about what you were describing, but make sure it's a for-profit business.
Okay, great. Can you use the 504 for a mixed use property?
Yes, so you can, but again, it's all about making sure your business is operating out of at least 50% if it is an existing mixed use property. And you're not going to be able to use the 504 for any of the renovations in the residential part of it. This is all about the commercial part of your business, but you can use it to purchase that building. But that is really a key component. So make sure you're looking into that when you're talking with your real estate agent.
Is there a timeline for the SBA?
I'm not 100% sure. I guess I can come up with a couple different ways to think about that. One is that, if your project is actually authorized by the SBA to move forward, for example, the authorization remains good for 3 years. Perhaps that's what the question is. I'm not sure what the other way timeline. If there's a clarification, I'm happy to answer that.
Interested in building a shared kitchen? Would that be eligible?
Well, again, I would say, is it a for-profit? Is it for-profit? If the answer is yes, then that is a possibility.
What is the likelihood of getting an SBA 504 loan versus Spiff or NOF grant?
Great question. They all kind of they have similar things, but they all sort of operate on different time periods. Again, for Spiff, every 30 days, it's if your area is open for application, that's when you can apply. And it's as long as there's money available. NOF, it's a competitive grant. Right now, we don't have any open. For 504, we're not in danger of running out of money at this point for the 504 program. It really comes down to, are you eligible? Are you meeting the criteria? I think a lot of people think of SBA loans and they think of PPP or EIDL. This is not that. This is totally separate. This is a setup that's been going on for more than 30 years. And this actually is really more about your project and being able to show that it's meeting these public policy guidelines of creating jobs and investing in entrepreneurs from traditionally under-resourced areas and communities.
Right. Is there a credit score criteria for 504?
There's not a specific, like, this is the credit score criteria, but it is something that we look at, obviously. And the thing about it is you will have don't forget, a traditional lender who is participating in the loan. So they may have a very specific credit score requirement. For us, though, we will be checking in to see, like, are you able to pay back your loans? You know, the thing about the SBA 504 loan is it has a very, very, very small default rate. And the reason why is that you do run through both our credit analysts as well as the SBA and a traditional bank. So you're not precluded by your credit score, but you need to be able to show that you are, through other means, that you will be eligible and a business that's going to be able to succeed and pay back your loan.
Great, thank you. If I'm acquiring a business to then run myself, what do I need to provide to get 504 NOF or Spiff grants?
So if it's just the business assets and not necessarily, just like the business intellectual property, that's not something that any of these projects can help you with. If you're actually looking to acquire the building, the only two programs that would be eligible, NOF, which is not open right now, which you can do building acquisition, and 504, which you can use for building acquisition. I'll see if I can go back here. I'm always all about trying to make sure you have your key financial documents together. And I think a lot of it's about everything from your business plan and license, corporate tax returns, your personal financial statement, making sure you have all of these things together. And if you connect with one of our loan officers at SomerCor or with your traditional lender, your banker, they'll pretty much tell you the same thing. These are the things they'll want you to get together, and they'll have a specific checklist for you to work through.
Can this loan be used for purchasing building for a private banquet hall?
If it's a for-profit business, that is certainly a possibility. And so, like, let's say you want to buy it for, maybe it exists and it needs renovations. If you want to use the 504 not only to purchase the space, but also renovate it, that it also can be eligible. Yes.
Is there any project manager that can help me out with all the process for purchasing a commercial through SBA 504?
That's a great question. I don't have a particular project manager list. I know that, let me see if I can move all the way back here to the beginning. So if you're looking at the Spiff website, there actually is a technical assistance providers list for both Spiff and NOF for if you're needing help with construction management. When it comes to like the actual purchase of the real estate, that's not necessarily something they would do. But if you're then like trying to have someone who can help you through the renovation process, the technical assistance provider, the construction manager on there, there's also an architect's listed on there. Those could be helpful for you. When it comes to actually working with you to submit things to your lender or to the SBA, that's really where we come in at SomerCor to make sure you're helping you gather that particular information.
Great. Are co-signers allowed on 504? We had a great credit pre-COVID, since have some late payments.
I'm not 100% sure how the structure works, with the 504. It depends on if it's just your personal credit or your business credit, right? I think those are really two key things. I would say I'm not a loan officer, so I don't want to be able to give incorrect information one way or the other. But if you want to speak to one of our loan officers, let me connect you and they'll help you decide if this is still something that you would be eligible for.
Great, thank you. Does this program work for newly acquired buildings or existing?
Let's say you already have the building and you actually want to perhaps refinance it because the way that you use a conventional loan to purchase it, you potentially can actually refinance it and then also do work to do the renovations as well. Or you could, let's say you just bought land and you want to do ground up construction, newly acquired, you can do that as well. So the building does not have to exist already for you to use the 504. And you could also already own the building and still use the 504 in other ways to do the renovations and refinance to help you save.
Great. If I am renting a residential location for business, the inside of the unit can't be approved for upgrades.
Correct.
For example, plumbing, electrical, windows, remodeling for childcare, youth services.
No, unfortunately, residential are not applicable.
If the services are provided in Chicago, but business is registered in a surrounding suburb, does that disqualify you?
So the key is about SBIF and NOF. You know, for 504, it doesn't matter anywhere state of Illinois you're eligible. The key for a SBIF and NOF is the actual address of where your business is located. So if your business is located in a SBIF district, you're eligible when that opens up for application. If your business is in an NOF eligible corridor, you are eligible to apply when that opens up. So it's less about where you live. It's more about where the actual business is located.
Okay, great. If you're a startup registered with the IRS as a nonprofit, but not approved for nonprofit, can you still apply? Because technically it's not a nonprofit until the 501c3 is applied for and approved.
Well, so not for 504 because no nonprofits are not eligible. I generally say this for both SBIF and NOF. Obviously, NOF we're going to leave to the side because it's not open right now. If you find out that your SBIF district is opening up next week and you don't have the paperwork yet from the IRS, I would say to apply and then let us know when we call you and say, okay, hey, like you're up right now to start your project, and say, hey, I haven't gotten this yet from the IRS. You have about 20 to 30 days from that point to be able to get your paperwork together. So I would still say to try, and we'll see if we can work with you.
Great, thank you. Timeline. Are there specific dates for applying for SBA 504?
No. You can apply, you can work with one of our loan officers at any time. The key thing in terms of timeline to note is that the interest rates for what your loan is actually funded at, and then that will be sort of your set interest rate for your 504 portion of your loan. That happens every month, but that's not until construction is complete and all the other things are done with your project. So otherwise, that there is no timeline there. We generally, if you're just looking to buy the building, just a straight purchase, it can generally move relatively quickly within months, if, within a month or two, depending on how quickly you get all of your financial paperwork in. Let's say you're building out though and doing renovations, that takes a couple of years, and we recognize that. And it's not until the end when the project is finished that your loan is actually funded and you know what your interest rate will be.
Great. If I run a for-profit with a nonprofit arm out of the same space, can I still get a 504 loan? Well,
I think that can be tricky. Again, because the question is like, are you using 51% of the space for operating your for-profit? That one I'd want to get a loan officer's opinion on. Because we definitely have heard of folks who kind of have both like a foundation and a for-profit arm in the same space, but I'd want to talk to a loan officer to see if that's eligible.
Is there a maximum building price for purchasing through 504?
No. You as a 504 loan, your 504 portion of your loan, the maximum is going to be 5 million. If it's anything other than a manufacturing industrial, other than that, it's 5.5 million. But you could do a project size much larger, and you just know that your bank and you would be making up sort of the difference of that. But we generally don't see projects of that size.
Great. Do you know if there is a Spiff in Cook County or similar programs?
Spiff outside of the city of Chicago? Excuse me, I'm so sorry. I do know that some individual municipalities in Cook County have They don't call them spiffs, but they have like TIF funds sometimes for like specific commercial corridors. I encourage anybody who has questions about that to reach out to the village or community economic development office there and see if they have that. Or, because we don't necessarily, we only administer on behalf of the city of Chicago. We're always happy to also, if you find out, hey, your municipality is interested in having something like this, but they don't know where to start, we're also happy to talk to even the municipal advisors to say, hey, here's what it looks like in the city of Chicago. Here's what it can look like for you.
Great. If you apply and are denied the first time, can you reapply immediately, or is there a waiting period?
Let's see. I'm not sure. So I'll go through all three different programs again. NOF, if you're denied, you're welcome to apply again the next time applications open. Similarly for Spiff, if you are denied, the only reasons why you'd be denied is if, let's say, you don't get the paperwork in time, your eligibility limits are outside of what we talked about in the beginning. And if any of those things change, you're welcome to apply the next time your district opens. 504, same. If let's say, again, if circumstances change, they'll tell you why, we'll find out why, like, okay, you were denied because the building wasn't actually 51% operating the profit business that you talked about, or whatever else it is. You are welcome to apply again. There is no time limit necessarily, but you're going to want to work with a loan officer and one of our loan officers and lender, and they'll let you know if you're not going to be able to hit that threshold, or you're not going to be able to fix the issue. They'll let you know, but you certainly can apply again if the SBA denies you for one reason or the other.
Great. I manufacture printed circuit boards and just presented before the Department of Defense Manufacturing Innovation Center this month.
Cool.
Would like to purchase a commercial space to produce what I presented. Would I be eligible?
Yeah, definitely. We do lots, and I'll be honest with you, industrial manufacturing is probably one of the most popular business types right now that we're working on financing for the 504. We do tons of them. So I think a lot of people also ask, when should I, find my commercial real estate in terms of like when I'm looking for the 504? I kind of think it's smart to do it almost at the same time. And I say this especially for industrial manufacturing businesses because property for that is going really quickly. I think that if you're looking for like more retail space, it's not as quickly and not as competitive, but for industrial manufacturing, it's a lot more so. So I would say, if you think you're going to be interested, start talking to your lender or start talking to us or both, and working with your real estate, all sort of in tandem to say that, so when you find your building and you're ready to go, you can all do it at once. The last thing we want is for you to lose out on the property that you like because your lender wasn't familiar with the 504 or you hadn't started that process yet.
Great, thank you. Looking, any other questions are coming in. If anyone has any questions, if they could please put them in the chat.
Excuse me.
No worries.
I see things popping up in both the Q&A and the chat. So.
Yeah, one just came up in the Q&A. Let's see. Just a thank you, Ms. Brisky. I shall be contacting you.
Oh, okay, that's fine. Let me make sure I put my contact info up here, because at the end of the day, you guys are you're all welcome to email me, and I'll be like, it's not me, I don't know, but I know who can help. I did want to just one more time, just reiterate here while I'll let to look to see if there's any last minute questions, that if it's not us, if it's not a 504, if it's not Spiff, it's not NOF, if you have other capital needs, we may know, another organization in Chicagoland that can help you, whether it's Allies for Community Business, Women's Business Development Center, Greenwood Arts Capital, LISC. I'm sorry?
Both great resources.
Oh,
exactly.
Yeah, they're all great. So,
yeah.
So we all, it's kind of cool. We all do slightly different things. And honestly, also from WBDC and Allies, they also do a lot of business coaching stuff. So if you're like, whoa, I want this access to capital, but I'm not ready yet. I don't know my numbers. I don't have my business plan together. That's totally fine. We, encourage you then to start there, because our goal is to get everybody to the point where they feel comfortable and bankable all the way up through the 504 and beyond. And so wherever you are, we want to meet you there and try to get you to the next level.
That is great. I'll give everyone another minute. Everyone's saying thank you. Very informative. This is great information. I want to remind everyone that this has been recorded and will be posted on the BACP YouTube page. That's youtube.com/Chicago BACP. I put it in the chat earlier. If you want credit for the certificate program or some more information on the certificate program, BACP outreach at cityofchicago.org. Her email is still up. And I think that is all. The awesome presentation. I'm psyched. I love that. This is great. I want to thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing. Have a great weekend. Great comments coming in the chat. Kimberly, thank you. Nice. Thank you so much as usual. This was a great webinar. We really appreciate you presenting. Everyone, I hope you have a great, safe, and holiday weekend.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.